Have you ever felt like you're suffocating amidst so much stuff? Looked at your room and found no peace, only objects screaming for attention? The truth that few realize is that our spaces aren't just reflections of who we are. They actively shape our minds. Studies show that people who live in organized environments have 40% less daily stress. This simple habit from Japanese homes isn't just about organization. It's about saving your emotional life from modern chaos. Look around you right now. Every object you keep demands something from you, be it maintenance, mental space, or guilt for not using it. This is why so many people wake up exhausted even after long nights of sleep. Your environment is secretly draining your vital energy. In traditional Japanese homes, there's a silent wisdom that has gone unnoticed in the West for too long. It's not just about having less, it's about creating space for your soul to breathe. Let's discover how this age-old practice can bring clarity to your cluttered mind and peace to your restless heart. The first time I entered a home authentically inspired by the Japanese style, I felt something I couldn't explain. It was as if the air was different, lighter. The atmosphere didn't have that invisible pressure I feel in crowded spaces. There was little furniture, soft colors, and each object seemed to have been chosen with deliberate intention. The most surprising thing was the silence, not an empty silence, but a silence that spoke. That silence taught me that the excess of visual stimuli we accumulate in our homes creates constant noise in our minds. Each object tells a story, makes a demand, or triggers a memory. Now imagine living in an environment where hundreds of voices are constantly competing for your attention. It's like trying to sleep in a busy train station. Technically possible, but far from ideal. The philosophy behind Japanese minimalism wasn't born as a decorating trend, but as a practical necessity in a country where space is valuable and homes are traditionally small. Over the centuries, this necessity has transformed into a virtue, the art of living with less and finding more meaning in each choice. When you start incorporating these principles into your own life, the transformation occurs on 3 levels: the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. Let's explore each of them. On the physical level, the change begins with the act of simply refusing. Refusing to accumulate. Refusing to bring home objects that don't serve a clear purpose. It's important to understand that this purpose isn't limited to functionality. Beauty is also a legitimate purpose. A vase of flowers may not have practical utility, but it nourishes the soul. The question isn't whether something is useful, but whether it truly enriches your life. This practice of refusing is revolutionary in a culture that constantly bombards us with messages that we need to buy more to be happy. Every time you say no to an impulse purchase, you're exercising a mental muscle that has atrophied in most of us, the muscle of discernment. The next step is perhaps the most challenging: discarding. Looking at what we've already accumulated and asking with sincerity, does this still serve the purpose for which it was acquired? Does this still bring me joy? If the answer is no, it's time to thank and release the object, and by extension, release yourself. There are areas in our homes that accumulate objects like magnets, kitchen drawers, closets, boxes under the bed. You probably have objects that you haven't seen in years, but keep just in case or because one day I might need it. The truth is that this one day rarely comes, and the cost of keeping these items, in physical and mental space, is greater than the benefit of having them around. However, detachment shouldn't be a cold or calculating act. Each object that leaves your home deserves gratitude for the service provided, even if it was brief. This attitude transforms the process of discarding into an act of positive release, not of loss. There's a story about a woman who lived in a small apartment in Tokyo. When visitors asked how she could live in such a compact space, she replied, "I don't live in a small space. I live in a space that's exactly the right size for me." This shift in perspective is powerful. It's not about giving up, but about precisely calibrating what we really need. The third level of transformation is liberation, allowing empty space to exist without the need to fill it immediately. In Japanese aesthetics, empty space isn't absence, but intentional presence. It's the breath between the notes that creates the music. It's the interval between thoughts that generates clarity. Many people feel discomfort with empty spaces, whether on a shelf, on a wall, or in a moment of silence. We rush to fill these voids, often thoughtlessly. Japanese minimalism teaches us to appreciate these spaces as opportunities to breathe, to contemplate, to simply be. A bookshelf doesn't need to be completely filled to be beautiful. In fact, When some books are surrounded by space, they receive more attention, becoming more meaningful. The same principle applies to your schedule, your closets, and your mind. Empty space isn't waste, it's potential. When I started applying these principles in my own home, I noticed something curious. As the physical space became more organized and intentional, my thoughts followed the same path. It was as if external clarity facilitated internal clarity. I began to notice patterns of thought that no longer served me, mental habits that occupied space without bringing benefits. Anxiety has a peculiar way of thriving in chaotic environments. Each item out of place, each pending decision, each unfinished project occupies a small space in our consciousness. These small occupants are rarely noticed individually, but together they form a noisy crowd that doesn't let us rest completely. Neuroscience studies confirm this. Our brain constantly processes all the visual stimuli in our field of vision, even if we're not consciously aware of them. A visually busy environment demands more cognitive resources, leaving less mental energy for the tasks that really matter. Imagine waking up in a room where every object has been chosen with intention. The clothes from the day before aren't thrown on the chair. There are no piles of unread books generating silent guilt. The bedside table contains only the essentials, perhaps a book you're actually reading, a glass of water, a small plant. This environment not only looks different, it feels different. The effect is subtle but profound. Your first thought of the day isn't about what needs to be tidied up, organized, or resolved. Instead, you have mental space for gratitude, contemplation, or simply appreciating the present moment. The kitchen is another space where these principles can transform not only the environment, but also our relationship with food. A kitchen inspired by the Japanese-style values quality utensils in reduced quantity. 20 knives aren't necessary when 3 or 4 well-chosen ones serve for practically all tasks. The cabinets aren't filled with plastic containers without lids or appliances that promise to revolutionize your life, but were only used once. Instead, there's space. Space to move easily, space to create, space to transform the act of preparing food into an almost meditative practice. This approach naturally extends to the food itself. Simple meals, prepared with fresh ingredients and presented with attention to detail, become complete sensory experiences. Excessive elaboration isn't necessary when the quality of the ingredients can shine on its own. The bathroom, often neglected in our considerations of living spaces, deserves special attention. In Japanese homes, bathing isn't just a hygienic necessity, but a ritual of renewal. The space is treated with reverence, clean, organized, free of accumulated products and old towels. Transforming your bathroom into a sanctuary doesn't require expensive renovations. Start by removing all the products you don't really use. Keep only the essentials, preferably in simple, unlabeled containers. Add a natural element, perhaps a small, moisture-resistant plant or an interesting stone found during a walk. The result is a space that invites presence, not haste. A place where you can truly renew yourself, not just clean yourself. The living room in many homes has become a monument to passive entertainment. Large televisions dominate the space, immense sofas occupy most of the room, and coffee tables disappear under magazines, remote controls, and other objects that lack a defined place. Reimagining this space through the lens of Japanese minimalism means asking, what is the true purpose of this environment? Is it for connection, conversation, contemplation, or relaxation? Once the purpose is defined, each element can be evaluated in relation to it. Perhaps the television doesn't need to be the focal point of the room. Perhaps a seating arrangement that facilitates conversation is more valuable than a sofa facing a screen. Perhaps a single meaningful work of art creates more impact than walls covered in diverse decorations. When our spaces are designed to meet our true needs, not the ones that advertising has convinced us we have, we experience a sense of alignment that is difficult to describe, but impossible to ignore. The office or workspace is perhaps the environment that benefits most from this approach. In a world where information overload is constant, creating a space that promotes focus and clarity is almost an act of rebellion. An office inspired by the principles of Japanese minimalism has nothing but the essentials. The desk is free of accumulated papers. There are no pens that don't work or sticky notes covering every surface. Technologies are present but don't dominate. Cables are organized, or better yet, minimized. The result is a space that supports your work rather than competing with it. an environment that allows deep concentration, not constant distraction. It's important to emphasize that Japanese minimalism isn't about asceticism or deprivation. It's not about living in sterile or uncomfortable spaces. On the contrary, it's about creating environments that truly nurture and support who you are and what you value. Beauty arises not from perfection, but from authenticity. A truly welcoming home isn't one that looks like it came out of a decorating magazine, but one that sincerely reflects the priorities and values of those who live in it. There is a Japanese word that captures this idea of beauty in imperfection, transience, and incompleteness. Although I will not name it directly, as requested, this concept teaches us to value objects that show signs of use and history. A repaired plate can be more beautiful than a new one, as it tells a story of care and preservation. This appreciation for imperfection extends beyond objects. It also applies to our lives. We accept that our spaces, like ourselves, are constantly evolving. We don't seek a final state of perfection, but a continuous process of refinement and alignment. The benefits of this approach go beyond the merely aesthetic. Research indicates that people who live in less congested environments have lower levels of cortisol, the stress hormone. They sleep better. They make clearer decisions. Even their immune system functions more efficiently. There are also significant environmental benefits. When we consume less, we produce less waste. When we value quality over quantity, our objects last longer, reducing the need for frequent replacement. When we repair instead of discard, we reduce our ecological footprint. The transition to a more minimalist lifestyle doesn't happen overnight. It's a journey, not a destination. Start with small changes in specific areas, perhaps your desk or the kitchen counter. Observe how you feel in those spaces after the transformation. Allow that feeling to inspire you to continue. Some people encounter internal resistance to the process of simplification. This is natural and understandable. Many of us have been conditioned to associate material abundance with security, status, or success. Detaching from objects can activate deep fears of inadequacy or loss. When you encounter this resistance, approach it with gentleness. Don't force the process. Ask yourself, what does this object really represent to me? Is there another way to honor that meaning without keeping the physical object? For items with sentimental value, consider documenting them with photographs before passing them on. For objects that represent unrealized aspirations, such as hobby equipment never used, recognize that releasing the object doesn't mean abandoning the dream. It may simply mean recognizing that there are other priorities in your life now. Japanese minimalism teaches us that our possessions should serve us, not the other way around. When we spend hours organizing, cleaning, repairing, storing, and searching for our things, we become servants of our objects. Time, our most precious and finite resource, is consumed by managing what we own instead of experiencing what we value. Imagine halving the time spent on household maintenance. What would you do with those newly freed hours? Perhaps you would spend more time with loved ones. Perhaps you would develop a skill or hobby that has always interested you. Perhaps you would simply rest more deeply, allowing your body and mind to recover completely. An often overlooked aspect of this philosophy is its application to the digital world. Our devices and online accounts can become as congested as our physical homes. Unread emails, constant notifications, multiple social networks. Each element demands fragmented attention and creates cognitive overload. Applying minimalist principles to digital life can be as liberating as applying them to physical spaces. Uninstall rarely used apps. Archive old emails. Disable unnecessary notifications. Create intentional periods of digital disconnection. Our living spaces, whether physical or virtual, profoundly shape our experiences. When we simplify these spaces, we're not losing, but gaining clarity, calm, time, and attention. The morning routine in a home inspired by Japanese philosophy is revealing. There's no frantic rush searching for lost items. There's no pile-up of decisions about what to wear or eat. Instead, there's a deliberate, almost ceremonial rhythm. Waking up in an organized space allows you to start the day with presence, not reactivity. Your first hour sets the tone for the hours that follow. When that hour is characterized by calm and intention, the whole day tends to follow a similar pattern. The simplicity of the routine doesn't mean monotony. On the contrary, it frees up energy to appreciate the subtle nuances of each day. The distinct aroma of morning tea, the specific light filtering through the window, the distant sound of birds or rain. Details that often go unnoticed amidst the chaos gain prominence in a simplified environment. As the day progresses, the benefits continue. Returning to an organized home after a day of work provides an immediate sense of relaxation. There's no mental list of chores waiting for you, just a sanctuary that supports your recovery and renewal. Meals in a minimalist environment become opportunities for complete nourishment, not just of the body, but also of the mind and spirit. Without visual distractions competing for attention, it's easier to practice mindful eating. Flavors are more pronounced, textures more noticeable, the experience more satisfying. The evening period, often compromised by excessive stimuli, regains its natural purpose of slowing down and preparing for rest. A room free of electronics, work papers, and objects associated with obligations becomes truly a space for repose. It's fascinating to observe how even people skeptical of this approach often change their minds after experiencing it for a few weeks. The feeling of lightness, both physical and emotional, that accompanies simplification is persuasive in itself. Many people report more vivid dreams, clearer thoughts, and more harmonious relationships after simplifying their environments. The connection between external space and internal state is stronger than we generally recognize. There's also a social dimension to this practice. When we reduce our focus on material possessions, we naturally direct more attention to human connections. Conversations become deeper. Shared experiences gain priority over shared acquisitions. Children raised in environments that value simplicity and intentionality often develop greater creativity and independence. With fewer but more meaningful toys, they learn to value quality over quantity from an early age. With more space for movement and exploration, they develop confidence in their physical abilities. Japanese minimalism invites us to question deeply rooted cultural premises. In a society that equates consumption with happiness, choosing simplicity is revolutionary. It's declaring that we find value in experiences, not in possessions, in quality, not in quantity, in meaning, not in accumulation. Perhaps the most powerful aspect of this philosophy is its potential to reconnect us with what truly matters. When we remove the excess, physical, mental, digital, social, we discover the essential, and the essential invariably is surprisingly simple. Love, connection, purpose, beauty, growth, contribution. These are the elements that truly enrich a human life. They don't require material excess. In fact, they often thrive in its absence. The story that deeply touched me was about an elderly man who lived in a small house in the mountains. When visitors commented on the simplicity of his dwelling, he would smile and say, "The less I own, the more attention I can give to each object. The smaller my house, the more intimate my connection with each space. I don't seek abundance of things, but abundance of experience." This wisdom echoes the essence of Japanese minimalism. It's not about having less for the sake of having less, but about creating space for what truly enriches our existence. As we conclude this journey through the principles of Japanese minimalism, I invite you to look again at your environment with renewed eyes, not as a space to be filled, but as a canvas where each element is a conscious choice, not as a storehouse of possessions, but as a reflection of values. The transformation begins with a simple question: does this object, habit, or commitment truly add value to my life? If the answer is no, perhaps it's time to thank it and let it go. As you simplify your external environment, observe the changes in your internal environment. Notice how your breathing becomes deeper in organized spaces, how your thoughts flow more clearly, how anxiety decreases when visual excess is reduced. The path to inner peace often begins with simple external actions: a clean counter, an organized drawer, a bookshelf with only the books that truly touch your heart. Small transformations that, together, create a profound change. This simple habit of living with less but with more meaning can truly save your life from chaos, distraction, and the feeling of always running without getting anywhere. It's not just a way to organize a house, it's a way to rebuild a life. Getting started is simpler than it seems. You don't need to transform your entire house at once. Choose a small space, perhaps a drawer, a shelf, or a corner of a room. Apply the principles there. Experience how it feels. Allow the transformation of that space to inspire the next step. Remember that this is not a project with a final deadline, but an ongoing practice, a dance between acquiring and releasing, filling and emptying, acting and resting. The goal is not perfection, but alignment, creating an environment that truly resonates with who you are and who you want to become. By clearing your space, you clear your mind. By simplifying your environment, you simplify your decisions. By creating a home that breathes, you allow your own soul to breathe too. This is the gift of Japanese minimalism. Not a life of deprivation, but a life of true abundance. Not less, but more. More space, more time, more clarity, more peace. A life where each object, moment, and relationship receives the attention it deserves, free from the distraction of excess. Your path to this transformation begins now, exactly where you are, with what you have. It begins with a careful look, a conscious choice, a small step towards the simplicity that paradoxically makes life infinitely richer. This simple Japanese habit can save your life. Japanese minimalism. Share this blessed video so that it can touch and help other people like you and me. Don't forget to click the subscribe button if you haven't already. Thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for being part of our community of faith. If you would like to support our channel a little more, consider becoming a member of our channel. I leave here 2 more videos so that you can continue your search. Thank you and God bless everyone. See you later.